We take lighting our houses for granted. Who else is out there that we don't know about? Stop all this rhetoric and this wringing of hands that says, oh, we can't afford this. We can't afford not to do it.
In today's episode of Trailblazers, Johnny is speaking to Scott Johnson, a telemedicine and cold supply chain consultant who's worked across the globe helping to improve the health of millions of people. As ever, we hope you enjoy the episode and be sure to subscribe and follow us on social.
Okay, Scott, fantastic to have you here, dude. Genuine pleasure to talk to you today about some of the amazing work that you're doing. And go ahead and introduce yourself. Give everyone a brief little tour de force of Scott Johnson.
All right, Johnny, I'm beyond honored, seriously, and kudos and thanks to Steve Wood for connecting us. And it just wasn't too long ago that we started a conversation, and it's just exploded since then. And I admire your work, and I'm honored to be on your podcast. Thankful to share what I've been privileged to experience and my passions. And um, basically, I'm here in Ohio, and I grew up in Ohio. And in 1984, I became an ordained minister. In 2010, I retired from the ministry to go into mission work with a friend of mine doing what's called VSAT, very small aperture terminals, and bringing internet into off grid regions of the world to do amazing development that I had never knew existed. And one of the biggest things was telemedicine. So I've been a telemedicine evangelist since 2011, started out in Kenya, and then came upon some people doing amazing stuff with solar powered refrigeration. And I never realized what just how important it is to have refrigeration capabilities in off-grid regions of the world, and and how it increases development in a nanosecond. So
Yeah.
that was a start, and then along the way, I've just met tons and tons of amazing people like yourself, and now I'm just trying to be a connector, connecting dots.
Well, you do that fantastically, and anyone that knows you will tell people that. With regards to the work that you're doing in cold chain, for those that may not be familiar with the concept, with what cold chain is, why is cold chain so important in these regions that you're working in and the areas of focus that you have?
um, so we are spoiled in the West and in developing countries because we have electricity, we have power, we have our refrigerators, we have coolers in stores, we have refrigerated trucks. Produce and goods travel all over the world in refrigerated containers, so we can have lettuce here. I mean, it's like 0 degrees Fahrenheit right now, but I can go to the grocery and get lettuce and make a salad, and I can buy all kinds of fruits. My meat stays cold. We just don't even realize how important refrigeration is. And that when you are able to refrigerate fruits and vegetables and other produce in off grid regions of the world, what you've done now is you've extended the shelf life, but you've also extended their ability to prosper. So every penny, as you know, Johnny, is priceless to people in developing countries. And when you can put solar powered refrigeration not only in agricultural communities but in clinics, now we have the ability to help people prosper. We can create resilience, we can create sustainability, and that's what I've learned with regards to cold chain. So uh, I was on a steep learning curve because I could exegete scripture, but I had no idea what cold chain was and VSAT and telemedicine and
Well, there's probably a many people listening to this who don't know that. So, give us the brief, skinny, and the history
yeah.
there.
So cold chain is when sometimes they call it from farm to fork. Okay, so from the farm, when something is harvested, even when milk is produced by the cows, in order to ensure that it's good and viable and safe on the table, we have to refrigerate it along the way. Sometimes we call it daisy chain. So
Yep.
it goes from the field, somebody picks it up, puts it in a refrigerated truck, or they somehow take it to a processing plant. But once it gets out of there, it's refrigerated. So there's a thing called field heat. So when you pick something, the heat that helped make that fruit or that vegetable ripen on the vine is contained in that product, and it's called field heat. As soon as you pull it off the vine, Johnny, that heat that was good for the plant now becomes its enemy because it begins the rotting process.
Yes.
That heat begins the process of decomposition. So as soon as you can get that into refrigeration, now what you've done is you have retarded that heat from doing its job of destroying that priceless fruit or vegetable. So you're reducing and retarding the heat and the rotting, which means now you've extended the shelf life. And the statistics out there of how long you can now keep produce viable and safe once you pull out that heat is is incredible. And so now all along the way, we keep this refrigerated or frozen, and that's the chain. It's like a chain of command. It's like in what do they call it in criminology? The chain of evidence that we got to
Yep.
make sure that it's still secure. So cold chain, and there's a world organization and regional organization, the Cold Chain Alliance. So it's everybody that works in the field of refrigeration. And where it really gets exciting to me is that the same um, cold sheds or solar powered refrigeration units, like you think of a vending machine. Now we can run those by solar power, which means we can put them in a clinic, and now we can cold chain medicines and vaccines.
Yeah.
So where cold chain really turned the world upside down was with COVID. Okay, well, Pfizer comes out with a vaccine, but you got to keep it at minus 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, that nobody has that capability. All right, but they had to figure it out.
Yeah.
All right, and so how your audience may know, but you know that if you do not keep cold chain monitored and the right temperature going from a clinic into a rural area, if it heats up too much, then that vaccine is no good.
Well,
All right,
100%. The integrity of the vaccine is lost, and
it's
in
lost.
the in best case scenario, it just becomes ineffective. Worst case scenario, it becomes dangerous. So once that
Absolutely.
integrity is lost, it's unusable. So having technology like this in place to facilitate the transit of medicines from point A to point B via a number of different
Yeah.
places that will keep it integral is vital. It really is.
Yeah, yeah. And so what I realized, I met this group that has a material that's it's what I want to say it's a vertical within cold chain supply, and it's an engineering um, product called PCM, stands for phase change materials. Okay, and so the phase is changing from like a solid to a liquid to gas. That's
Yep.
the phase change. But you and I, if we get injured, we'll go to the freezer and we'll pull out a gel pack and put it on our bum knee, right?
100%.
Or if we're going fishing, we get this other kind of thing that we have in the freezer. We throw it in our cooler and we put our drinks in there and our sandwiches, and they stay cool for a period of time, right? Phase change material, that's a phase change material. That's PCM inside that gel pack or that hard case kind of thing. It's changing from a solid to a liquid, and when it's doing that, it's releasing its thermodynamic property to keep your food cold. But eventually it runs out, right?
Yes.
And later on in the day in a hot sun fishing, now our drinks and our food aren't quite as cold as they were. Specifically engineered PCMs release their cold in a very long duration and a very systematic monitored way. So the gel pack we have will start out cold here, and as the ambient temperature warms up and it's in there for a while, that cold power is going to drop like that.
Yeah.
PCMs, these engineered ones that we work with, can take a vaccine into a remote area and stay at 2 to 8 degrees Celsius in an insulated container for like 24 hours and more.
It's incredible.
So we're able, and what I'm doing now is working. We've run this beautiful pilot program in Kenya now with vaccines and with blood samples. We have a backpack, and in that backpack, it's two compartments, and in that backpack, this insulated backpack, we put the PCMs. And what's great about two compartments, Johnny, is you can now go into the field with two different medicines that have two different levels of cold they got to be kept at,
Yeah,
because PCMs are specific to the product that you want to carry. So they were taking vaccines into the rural areas of Kenya from a clinic. So they freeze the PCMs, and then in the morning they put them in the backpack, put all the vaccines inside this container in the backpack, and they spent hours and hours and hours not only traveling to the remote sites but on site vaccinating people, um, not only the vaccines, okay, but they're able to take blood samples from people or other samples, put them into this insulated container to bring back to the clinic for diagnostics, and it's
yeah,
kept cold. So the chain is kept cold in that monitor sense, and then we put sensors inside that's hooked up to an iPhone app. So, or what? I've pointed to my Apple, my watch, my smartwatch, which makes me really dumb.
not at
but,
all.
but that's what's so great, because we can monitor and we can know, because of the sensor inside these insulated containers, Johnny, whether or not we broke the chain.
Yeah,
Because if you administer a vaccine to a person that's not viable, then guess what? Now we've created a worse situation because a person thinks they are now vaccinated and they are not. And then you just get not only sickness, but you get this mutation, you get new runs of the diseases, and COVID's a case in point. And we are on the verge of outbreaks of all kinds that I've learned from these zoonotic researchers.
yeah, and the fact that the chain runs both ways in the
Yeah,
work that you're doing. It's not just about taking medicines to these far flung places. So you're trekking and you're getting to these these far flung regions or places that are off the little beaten path. You're actually able to take samples from there to transport those back to go to the labs to be studied. That prevents us from tumbling down the rabbit hole of another zoonotic disease or another disease that jumps species, which means that we are future proofing. We are actually in a position where healthcare wins for all, because actually
yeah.
we have an ability to study these things and to do something with it further in advance. And that's why the work that you're doing is so inspiring. It's so wonderful, because I think it's a pure case in point of when medicine works for what historically has been probably a rather neglected populace, it actually shows that it wins for all. And that democratization of healthcare and the infrastructure that needs to be put in place and the mechanisms that we need to create in order to facilitate that change are so important. Um, and on top of the work that you're doing within cold chain, you mentioned about solar. You mentioned about kind of keeping those packs cool and stuff like that. So talk to us about some of the other bits and pieces that you've got going on within that infrastructure. And one of the challenges being power and making sure that people are able to have access to that.
Yeah. So when I entered the university, I actually entered the university here to be a wildlife biologist, and so the creation and conservation have always been important to me. And so when I got into this work and back into Africa and in these remote areas, once again I became aware of how a game changer solar power is, and with the price coming down. So, so not only with the solar power for refrigeration, which is a game changer, I have a model that I've been able to put together, Johnny, that's based on the International Space Station (ISS), when you think about it, everything that goes on the International Space Station is possible because of solar power. There is
Yeah.
no long extension cord, is there? So
Not that
everything
I'm
that can be.
aware of. I think it would be pretty long as well if it needed to go from the ground, and then also it would probably have to wrap around. We'd probably be creating kind of a great big ball of yarn. It wouldn't be so much a great big blue thing floating in the universe.
Yeah,
It'd just be a big,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah,
It'd be a big cord going around it.
yeah. I mean, we sometimes, Johnny, what amazes me is how we overlook and don't appreciate the obvious. The high tech, amazing things that they are doing every day on the International Space Station, keeping people alive, doing medicine, doing all these experiments is only possible because of the solar panels.
Yeah.
So, what they have done in space, they have created a microgrid. And with that microgrid, they keep asking themselves a question: what can we do if we have power up there? Well, I have an ISS model. It's called the International Sustainability Station.
Okay.
You take a school, a clinic, a facility off grid and have an ISS model, put solar power there, then you have created a microgrid. So with this ISS, okay, when we create the microgrid, all right, then what else can we do? Okay, we need to do the solar powers solutions for cold chain. We can do the medicines, we can do the food, the produce, but at the same time, if we have enough panels, okay, we can now do. There's a wonderful company here in the United States. It was founded by the son of the guy who started Bose Audio System. That was
Yeah.
Amr Bose. His son Vanu created and patented solar powered cell towers, and they're being put up throughout the world and in disasters, but they're rolling out in Africa. And what the solar powered cell tower does, Johnny, is that it takes 4G connectivity into remote areas using solar power, and then it backhauls the signals to the last antenna of a major carrier, for instance, MTN in Africa.
Yeah.
So it extends the bandwidth, but again, it's solar power. So at this clinic, at this school, at this facility, if we put in the microgrid, then number one, we do the cold chain supply, which we can then take things deeper, but we can set up solar powered cell towers. And now we can bring in telecommunications. And once you bring in telecommunications, they have the world. Anything you get there in the UK, I get here in America, they can get in a remote location because we built the ISS. We've got a microgrid there. We can pump and purify water. We can the real game changer that nobody has really optimized and explored. And let's do this, Johnny, is e-banking. You go into Africa and everybody is e-banking, but you can't e-bank unless you have connectivity.
Of
But if
course.
we
Yeah.
put but if we put up a solar powered cell tower with a clinic or a school, then people can come and they can do e-banking.
Yeah.
And now there's this prospering like none other, right? Well, then the other thing is with the solar power, you run a bank of phone chargers right there. Because in off-grid regions, everybody wants to have a cell phone or a smartphone, but guess what? The challenge is getting it
It's how do
powered
you
up.
power it? Yeah. 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 Of
Yeah,
course.
yeah. So I can power it up, and oh, by the way, I can add minutes to my phone because I have connectivity. But we can now bring education into schools. We can do healthcare. We can do telemedicine, the e-banking. We can pump and purify water. The ISS and the imagination is endless. What can we do if we put a microgrid there?
Yeah, I mean, it's truly special because by laying that infrastructure, as you say, particularly in the area of medicine, you have the ability to do so much. And I think we've talked about this and touched on it in previous conversations where, by providing that connectivity, working with clinicians, boots on the ground, you've been able to patch people in from universities and university colleges and hospitals in the US, expert surgeons who can be patched in to provide clinics in the field expert
Yeah,
guidance. They can give them
yeah,
kind of some of the latest techniques and things that they might want to consider with no challenge whatsoever. The only challenge that was there has been removed, which was the connectivity and the bandwidth that they needed. And that really does go so far to level things up for those people, and it provides an ability for them to, as you say, to prosper, to kind of get those positive outcomes and impacts for themselves. And it really is just kind of a massive step change from where we are, just by putting in that infrastructure. And then obviously on top of that, you think about the downstream implications of that, as you say, in other industries, other areas. You've got e-banking, but that's obviously going to have greater impact in terms of broader financial literacy, investment, and all of that sort of stuff. That then it just starts to mushroom out, and you can only dream of the possibilities that go from there. With such a big vision, with such a big output and an outcome, what was it that served as the initial inspiration, the initial spark that kind of like lit this passion, this mission? Because it is a mission of yours,
Yeah.
and I know that we've spoken about it previously. You've used a beautiful hourglass analogy with regards to what you want to do with the time that you have left. And
Yeah.
so, what was that initial spark? What was the thing that kicked it all off?
As soon as my buddy in 2010 brought me into his company, and I had gone through the initial intake, he had done work within the communications for the White House, and he had friends that were doctors there that he had met, and this one doctor had a mission in Kenya. And another doctor had friends that were pioneering telemedicine. And so they called up my buddy in January and they said, so and so is going to go to Kenya to take a mission team there to do medical work. And my buddies want to field test a telemedicine device. You got anybody that can go with them? He said, I just hired him. So,
Epic.
so I got, it was like jumping from the frying pan into the fire. And so I learned how to set up a VSAT antenna and acquire a signal. And I'm learning telemedicine from this box. And then I'm going through JFK airport with all these Pelican boxes, joining this medical team. And we go to Kenya and we land in Nairobi. And then we take a bird biter out into the Masa Mara. And I get set up with this telemedicine uh, box that had blood pressure cuff, spirometer, otoscope, a thermometer, an EKG, all in this unit. And all of a sudden, I'm taking vitals on people, but we're loading it up on this device and sending it to former White House doctors back in the United States, and having a video link and consulting them, and having the doctors on both ends talking about and seeing the same data. Like you said, you don't have to send people, you just get the connectivity. And
100%.
it changed my life in a heartbeat. And what broke my heart was these young doctors in Malindi, Kenya, at a government hospital. I had the only EKG in the whole facility, and we were going around ward to ward doing EKGs with people, and they begged me to leave the telemedicine box, and I couldn't.
Yeah.
And people die because they have to go out and get their specialists, like we have here in the U.S. and the U.K., but they can't afford to get the EKG from the specialists.
It's
And
yeah.
these devices are nickels now. And so you talk about democratizing healthcare. One of the things that I believe, Johnny, is that we're dealing with an issue of social international justice, because we decide who's going to get these devices and who doesn't, because we say it's funding and that's too expensive. And I'm going like, you're crazy. This telemedicine box with all those suites of devices in it can be taken out, hooked up to the internet through these cell towers or whatever, bringing doctors in from anywhere in the world, and and
Oh,
and,
it's
and people
it's
live.
it's in, it's maddening and it's infuriating when the
Yeah.
limiting factor is supposedly money. And it's one of the conversations that I had both yesterday, and we touched on it briefly today in another conversation that I had with a colleague of yours, or a connection of yours, Will Duffin from the World
Oh,
Extreme
Will.
Medicine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we spoke briefly and we touched on neglected diseases and things that
Yeah.
are they are fast becoming problems in supposedly the more developed countries, because climate change is forcing the hand in that. Climate
Yeah.
change is forcing the spread of these neglected diseases. And now all of a sudden, health tech, big pharma, now they're suddenly interested. Now they're thinking, oh, well, we actually need to do something about this. And the question that I really have there is, well, why have we determined that we didn't level up the playing field for these other countries previously, on the assumption that it wasn't profitable? Because I don't really understand how that's such a short-sighted view on things. Because ultimately, if the sea level rises, all the boats should rise together, and we have an amazing
Yeah.
opportunity to share knowledge, be prosperous together, and through collaboration, communication, through all of the wonderful things that set us apart from our animal kingdom
Yeah.
cousins, it means that we should be able to all elevate each other, and so that thriving economy becomes someone that we would be able to trade with, that we would be able to communicate with. I don't. It just doesn't seem to make the logical sense in my mind as to why you would keep someone down because of something as silly as short term financial gain. And it does. It blows my mind. But it's
So,
something
Johnny,
that
in the UK, are you familiar with the saying "the canary in the mine"?
mm, the canary in the coal mine.
Yeah. So for your listeners' benefit, in the old days, canaries would be brought down into the coal mines in cages because they're very sensitive to methane. And so, if there is a pocket of methane that is hit when they're drilling, the canaries will die first. And so then the coal miners know we got to get out of here like now. I'm just going to go out on a limb, and from my experience and my congealing of my thoughts, Johnny, I think that we feel that people in developing countries are expendable. They're the canary in the mine.
Mm.
And so we don't go out on the to the front lines and really give optimal attention because we think in monetary terms, and then people are expendable, and we'll deal with it when it finally gets to our doorstep. So let them be the victims of malaria, cholera, whatever. We'll get it taken care of. But it's this idea that I think that poor people are expendable, and that is just
It's just flat out wrong.
incomprehensible to me. Okay, I have met the most beautiful, wonderful, creative, passionate, inventive people, um, in the rural areas, and I've been to Haiti a number of times, and I just love these people, and it's like a mother should not have to worry about whether or not her daughter or son getting bit by a mosquito is going to give them malaria and they're going to die. And the number one killer in most developing countries of kids is diarrhea.
I mean,
They
it's just
dehydrate, and it's like that should not happen. Not in today's world. It's just a foreign thing to me. And a mother here, their kid gets bit by a mosquito. They're not thinking malaria. They're not thinking
no.
death. And all these diseases, and that's why I'm glad you're dealing with people who are the diseases that aren't getting a lot of attention. They're claiming lives unnecessarily.
Yeah,
So with cold chain, for instance, we can deal with diabetes because we can keep insulin cold, right?
exactly.
And we can the polio vaccines, other vaccines, we can keep cold now. We can keep it viable. We can make sure that it's kept that way. We can get. I want to tell you a quick story. Well, you're talking about a game changer that changed me. So I have a dear friend in Haiti who's a Haitian doctor, and he was pioneering telemedicine in Haiti. I read about him from the American Telemedicine Association. He got this award. So I get a hold of him. His name's Dr. Joey, and he's training nursing students there to do telemedicine. And he has a clinic that is like 4 hours from Port-au-Prince, where he is. Okay, but he set up a telemedicine clinic with a woman in this community 4 hours away, who was not trained in medicine, but she had a passion for her people. He trained her to basically take vitals and to put they call them dongles down there, a USB air card
Mm-hmm.
into the side of the computer, and 2 days a week he gets on telemedicine with this person up there, and he sees 40 to 50 patients, and he does it when he's here in America. So here's what happened. They're because the healthcare person there does all the intake and then lines up the people. And this boy came in and he seemed to have this dropsy, but Dr. Joey couldn't figure out what was going on. Okay, so he
Mm-hmm.
said, "Hold on." So because like Zoom, you can bring in a lot of people. You do that with telemedicine. He zoomed in a colleague of his at the University of Rochester. All right,
Yep.
who's a telemedicine guru from years ago. Dr. McConaughey, he gets him online. Dr. McConaughey says, I'm going to be dialing this other guy who is a neurosurgeon. And the neurosurgeon is talking to Dr. Joey to tell this kid in this other community. So we got Rochester, Port-au-Prince, and Lister, and they're talking. And this neurosurgeon says, okay, have the kid do this, have the kid do that. Within a matter of moments, the neurosurgeon figured out what was going on with this boy. And you didn't have to send the neurosurgeon there, and the neurosurgeon did not have to know Creole because Dr. Joey was the bridge. So this is
Yeah,
the
he
other thing
acted.
that people don't understand about telemedicine in this is that we don't have to send translators. We just dial them in, right?
Yeah.
So within a few minutes, this neurosurgeon figured out what was going on with this boy. Dr. Joey related to the healthcare worker at Lister. And guess what? The kid never got a bill.
Wow.
Okay, what I'm getting at is that there are people that have knowledge and understanding that would love to be a consultant virtually. They would love to give their heart to people and be online to triage whatever and to help diagnostics and be on call. And we have a term. It's called a virtual missionary. Think of all the retired school teachers that could teach online. Think of all the doctors and clinicians and nurses that either active and can't travel but have a missionary heart, but they've got kids, they've got a marriage or whatever. We can put a database together of people, and they're doing it all the time now. But it's getting this for people in developing countries into these remoter areas so we can have miracles like this and save lives.
Yeah. I mean, it's using technology to
No
scale
brainer.
human intervention, and that's
Yeah.
exactly what we should be doing with the technology that we have at our disposal. And it gives us an ability to make such an incredible impact with, as you say, and also, one of the biggest challenges that we have, and I think this is one of the things that, as a weird segue into this conversation, I think is we have this crisis of loneliness, right? We have this
Yeah.
crisis of loneliness in the Western world where we're more connected than ever, but never so disconnected. Imagine you can give a sense of purpose, as you say, to that retired school teacher who may be living by themselves, that retired physician who gave their life to their career. Suddenly they have their ikigai again. They have their ability to feel their mission and their vision and the thing that fills their heart and their soul. And then they're able to play a role in that. That's a beautiful and wonderful thing, and that's a beautiful and wonderful proposition that tackles not just problems there, but also a problem here that we seem to be many times forgetting about, which is that loneliness epidemic. And I think it's the wonderful thing about oxytocin, right? It's good for you, it's good for the person, and it has that beautiful effect that the more that you do, the more you want to do.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love that. With that said as well, one of the things I wanted to touch on is I know that as well as being an evangelist, as well as being an innovator and having an entrepreneurial mindset as well yourself, I know that you've been working on some other bits and pieces, and I'd love to kind of give you an opportunity to share some of that stuff, because obviously, you're a big proponent of not just giving a man a fish or a fishing rod. It's about creating the fishing holes, and it's about providing the places, which is why the solar powered cell towers is so important, because it's about positioning. It's about having these
Hmm.
in the right places so that you can create that change. And that reminds me of a story actually, and it's a silly analogy, but it's one that was used in business, which was about a hot dog vendor. And you have to imagine that a genie appears and says to this hot dog vendor, he's like, "I'll give you, a wish to change your life, or what would you like?" He's like, "Oh, I'd like to have, the best tasting hot dogs in the world." He's like, "No, I don't think that's the wish." He's like, "Okay. Well, I want my hot dogs to cook quicker than anyone else, so I can serve more customers." And da, 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 da. He's like, "I don't think that's right either. Have another think." He's like, "Well, okay. Well, what would you wish for?" So the genie says, "Well, I'd probably put it on the corner that's going to have the most footfall, so that when people are leaving out of work, what are they going to want? They're going to want a hot dog. They're going to have lunch. They're going to have a hot dog. They're going to have, the snack. They're going to have a hot dog." So by putting it in the right place, that's where you achieve the impact. That's where you achieve the scale that you seek. And that's where, that fishing holes analogy I thought was so beautiful, because it is exactly that. It's providing the right locations. It's providing the right places that people can go. So I'd love it if you were able to kind of just expand on the other work that you're doing, as I said, with I don't want to ruin it because I know that I'll let you explain.
So the fishing holes. Uh, when when I first started this little dog and pony show with the NGOs and the missions, I met a guy named Steve, and I've always liked that saying: if you give a person a fish, you fed them for a day. If you teach them how to fish, you fed them for a lifetime. And I clicked to the next slide in my presentation after that, that little quote that so many of us know. And Steve said, "Hey Scott, do you know there's a third part to that?" And I was like, "No, Steve, I didn't know." And I could tell I broke out in this sweat. Like I've written my presentation. This guy's already challenging me. I'm never gonna do this again, kind of thing. And he said, "Let me tell you what spending 25 years as a missionary in Sierra Leone taught me." And he just kind of sat back and he said, "If you give a person a fish, you fed them for a day, so it doesn't really help. If you teach a person to fish, now they can fish for a lifetime and they can eat for a lifetime. However, they will still starve if you don't give them access to the fishing hole." And as soon as I heard that, my whole world did this paradigm shift in an instant. And it's been a guiding principle for me ever since: access. Really, what all of life is about, no matter where you go, it's about access. And connectivity that you talked about, Johnny, is really about giving access. And to me, access is a justice issue. And so when we put in the solar powered cell towers, when we put the solar powered cold chain, when we do other things in development, what we're doing is we're giving access to people to have a full and meaningful life, and a life that they can, in a sense, take control of and determine their destiny. We love to just go in and say, "Well, here it is, and this is how you're going to do it," and we just stifle their creativity. Uh, Let them fish. I mean, they're going to come up with all kinds of ways to do that fishing. We just got to give them access to the fishing hole.
Yeah.
And what we do in the West, what we do in developing countries is, unfortunately, the injustice of deciding who's going to go to this fishing hole and where are we going to put them. And so if you preposition, then it's called a center of excellence. And if we build a fishing hole at a clinic or a hospital or a school or a community building, whatever. Now what we've done is we've created a fishing hole, and we can take fish into further areas and put in a new fishing hole. And that's how people eat. That's how they live. It's fishing. And so I kind of went out on a limb a year and a half ago, and I started an LLC for consulting and networking and just putting dots together. And I call it Sufishent, because there are sufficient resources to handle any problem in the world. if we would just get to people access to the fishing holes. And so it's spelled Sufishent, fish. It's getting people to access to those fishing holes and pre-positioning those, building them, and taking these opportunities to people.
Yeah,
Oh, by the
incredible.
way, I got to tell you a cool one. All right, so you talk about building these out further. All right, another area is drones. So I've got some people that are flying medicines and things like that with drones into rural areas of Africa. And what we plan on doing with PCMs is being able to drone fly vaccines and medicines in, but they're kept at that right temperature, and then flying out samples so that they don't
Yeah.
become compromised.
Well, I mean,
So
it's even faster route, right? Because you're able to go as the crow flies, so to speak. So you don't
yeah,
need to trek through, dense forestry or anything like that. You're able to literally
yeah,
just go above the tree line, get the medicine to where it needs to get to, take the samples back to where it needs to get to, and it's absolutely game changer.
yeah, yeah, yeah. If you've ever been to Haiti, when you go Port-au-Prince up north on Route One, the mountains just scoop from the sea right up, and to get up to those communities up there is like a 4 hour drive maybe. But I can launch a drone from the base and get it up there in a matter of minutes.
It's incredible.
So we're saving gas, we're saving diesel, we're saving time, we're saving manpower because we've launched a drone that's taking medicine up there instead of trying to put it up there in some other way.
Yeah, and I'm
And when you
presuming
do this,
and those drones as well, because they're electric, they can be powered by solar energy, so it doesn't even cost
exactly.
anything as well. You
See,
can
now you're
literally
getting it.
charge it up,
Yeah,
set it off.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And what's the other thing is that with telemedicine and the democratization, anybody that has been into the rural areas of any developing country knows that people spend a ton of money trying to get from their village to the nearest clinic, and they lose all kinds of time, right? Time that could be productive. They go there, they may have to spend the night outside, they have to bring in their food, bring in money, and then they have to travel back to their home, and they spend those precious pennies that we can overcome by just putting in the cell towers and doing telemedicine. They just walk up to the clinic
Yeah,
instead of having to be driven. I experienced the death of a woman, a mother that had just given birth in Haiti, because we had to get her all the way down this mountain, and it took a couple of hours. And by the time they got to the clinic, she had bled to death.
I
But
mean,
if
it's
we
awful.
had if we had the telemedicine up there, Johnny, we could have done all kinds of prenatal care, and we would have been on top of it. And and
Yeah,
and, and it was the most tragic thing I've seen. And
I mean,
so
it's
this should
that's
not happen in today's world.
no, no. That's absolutely brutal, and I think you're completely right. That shouldn't happen in today's world. There's so many needless deaths that are, the burden of travel shouldn't be a reason that someone, passes away. That's an absolutely absurd reason that someone doesn't get the care that they need when they need it. So
Yeah.
being able to change that is an incredible effort on your part. If you were to, what are some of the things that you'd really like to see over the next, let's just use a relatively short time horizon. What are some of the things that you would really like to see over the next 3 to 5 years, and that you think would really be a game changer?
These. So this is a microgrid right here, Johnny. I'm going to try to get in the camera there. This is a microgrid. This is my friend's company. They brought me. This is not a commercial, okay? But this is something that is low tech. But this is a microgrid, and this is based on an origami design. It's called a Solite lantern. So it opens up. It's waterproof. It can float. All right. It's got Velcro straps here, so you can hang it up. It's got a strap here. You can carry it. And when you turn it on, it is a lantern. It's hard to see it because I have this light, but there
There
you
you go.
go. So this is called a puff, and we've taken these hundreds of these down to Haiti. They've been taken into Burundi. Alice Chun, who invented these, has been awarded as one of the 50 women over the age of 50 that's a game changer in the world by Forbes magazine. Uh,
Incredible.
uh, Popular Mechanics just selected this this past fall as one of the, it was the number 7 tech gadget that they were recommending. But here's what's great is that I have now created sunlight at night that I can bring into an area like my little place that I live in a rural area, and because I'm extending daylight, my kids can study longer. So we have proven in Burundi with school children that their grades have increased, and they have been able to get better test grades because they can study into the night. But the testimony also is, but so many of these kids walk to and from school while it's still dark. They
Yeah.
leave early in the morning, they walk like crazy, and then they go home at night. All right, they're carrying these now, and so it's a safety thing. And in other areas, women are able to go out and use facilities, not fearing that something may happen to them in the dark. The other thing with like with Will Duffin, and so there's a little button up here that changes. Now look at this. Okay, it gets brighter and darker, but it also can go red. So I can use these where there's an emergency, but if I need, I can blink it.
Yeah.
So people in developing countries walk all the time at night, and one of the biggest problems is getting hit by cars because they can't see you.
Yeah.
But what if we have people carrying these, and it just charges up during the day, but this can be used for emergency. It can be used by healthcare people. Um, like when I light this up, one of the things I like to say is that if you've ever dealt with maternity, you know that that baby is going to come when it decides, and it oftentimes is not during the day.
100%.
Well, in rural areas, they have to give birth in a hut or in a little shack kind of environment or a tent, okay, and use gas like a kerosene or something else for light, but the fumes are in there. Now we can send this out with healthcare workers, and oh, by the way, it collapses.
So it's
Think of how
easy to
many.
store.
Here's another size.
Yeah.
And this is, I'm an evangelist for this because we've taken them to refugee camps. They've been taken to the children in Ukraine in the hospitals. One of the things they found out, Johnny, is that with LED lights, the color blue has a calming effect. And when Alice took these to the children's hospital in Ukraine with all these children that had been traumatized, the nurses told her that it used to take a couple of hours to settle the kids down, but once they had these and turned on the blue light, it had such a calming effect that the kids were settling down within a half an hour to an hour,
Wow.
and then the kids get to take them home. uh, she took them to the earthquake victims in Turkey. She's taken these down to hurricane victims in Acapulco recently, down to Miami, around the world. These should be with all NGOs. That's my personal opinion. I've seen
Yep.
the difference, and they're clamoring for them. I can give you a testimony of a guy in Kenya where we're doing the cold chain. We sent along these lanterns, and he wants them. He said these are game changers out in the rural area. But the other thing about this one is called the Mega Puff. This is ingenious. You can't really see it on the camera, maybe, but there's a port right here, Johnny.
Yep.
So I can charge my cell phone or my tablet. Hey,
Amazing.
thanks, Richard. So I set this out, and I can charge my phone. I can send out medical people with their cell phones, and
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about whether or not I'm going to lose contact because we can just charge it. And I can do
Incredible.
telemedicine because I can charge this up. And if there's an emergency, you anchor this thing. So I shared this with the World Extreme Medicine people. We figured this out. You anchor this down, and it becomes a beacon for a landing zone.
Yeah.
And in triage, there's one of Alice's lanterns turns a lot of different colors, and so when there's a mass casualty, uh, people are color coded as to which is the most extreme, get to these people right away, and which ones may not. Okay, but what happens at night? You got to go walking around with a flashlight, or you. generators, but you don't have those in an earthquake zone. But with small colored lanterns, you can direct people. Here's the yellow group. Here's the green group. Here's the red group. And so you can set up at night where people um, need to be taken to get
Yeah.
optimal care.
And then, as you say, the other key thing about this is that you don't need any complicated infrastructure or generators or
No,
power plant to do that, because the only source
no,
of power that you need is the sun, and
yeah,
it
yeah,
lights it provides all of the energy that you need in those packs.
yeah. We're gonna. Alice is gonna be on an interview podcast with the people of Outdoor Magazine, because this is great for people who just go camping, people that go hiking.
Yeah, well, I mean,
You
this
know,
is the thing. I mean, this is just kind of like one use case for it, but the use cases in kind of medicine are absolutely astounding. There's so many
yeah,
of them in this. So I think that this could be a real game changer. I think the other major thing that you've just highlighted there is, what happens if you get to this far flung place, or this place that's out very very far off beaten track. Well, then you don't have power yourself. You don't have connectivity, or you don't. Well, that solves that problem. You've got a device that can actually serve to charge, your
yeah,
phone. You can call in the requisite help. So, you know, in the situation. So, a mother's giving birth. The person that's going to give her the care that arrives there, they trek up there as much as they need to. They realize it's going to be more complicated than it first appears. So they need to be able to call someone. They need to be able to contact someone. They need to be able to flag clearly that that's going to be someone or somewhere that they are, that they need the attention, so that maybe someone can be flown in, something can be droned in if you're using,
yeah,
drones for other medicines and things like that. You know, all of these things, and presumably, actually, with the drone thing, this takes it maybe one step a little bit further. But I don't know if this would be possible. You probably could put like a little GPS tracker in these things as well. So actually, you
oh
could
yeah,
tether that to the drone side of things. So it's almost like you could turn that on, and then it's a GPS beacon that's going out, and then those smart drones with the medicine can be dropped in. There's so much applicability. I'm excited about the possibilities of what you could do with it. Just even talking about it for a couple of minutes, you start to see the opportunities.
well, yeah, yeah. This I ran into these things in like 2013 at an aid and development forum, where we had a booth in Washington D.C. and a guy gave me one of these and I kept it, and I keep it in my kitchen window,
Yeah,
okay, because the power goes out in America even, and and then and at the last minute, Johnny, I threw it in my pocket when I went to Burundi 2 summers ago. And when I showed it around to people, the mission group and people there, they just said, "You gotta leave this. You gotta leave this." And then this one guy, it was one of my last days, and he says, "You're not." This is so cool. You're not taking that back. So I gave it to him, and that was my start to swim upstream like a salmon to find out who's making these things.
yeah,
And that's when I met Alice. And Alice is the kindest, most giving soul in the whole world. She was a professor at Columbia, and she's from South Korea. Her mom taught her origami as a kid, and so she's created this as based upon an origami design. And so the other thing I do when because I got school kids and kids in youth groups raising money to send these to kids in overseas.
yeah,
Okay, and the way I start off my talk is I put these in my pocket. Like I wear the cargo kind of pants, so I got them in my pocket and I got them up here, and I go, I'm carrying enough light bulbs on me right now to light up your whole house. And these kids will go, no, you don't. And I'll go, yes, I do. And I pull one of these out, and all of a sudden I get their interest and their curiosity. And I
yeah,
said, oh, check this out. And I open it up, and then I light it up. But they're so light, they're so compact.
yeah,
Think about the it's endless on what light does. It again, Johnny, is because like refrigeration, we take light for granted. We take lighting our houses for granted. Think of the refugees. Think of the people that are migrating because and displaced by war. These lanterns will give life.
yeah. Well, I mean,
We just got to put it in their
even the
hands.
example,
Yeah.
you used earlier, Scott, when you were talking about, enabling kids to be able to just study. Take it back to that. One of the biggest game changers, and it seems to be a real consistent and a real constant with all of the conversations I'm having around these different topics, education in so
Yes.
many aspects, in so
Yeah.
many aspects, in so many areas, in so many verticals, is the differentiator between, a positive outcome or a negative one. And through this, enabling kids to be able to study, that creates a massive downstream positive because,
It
more
does.
knowledge, more knowledge, more economic prosperity, more this, more that, more everything. And it just gives people, as you say, in terms of like this being a justice issue, it's kind of everyone should have equality of outcome and dignity as it relates to their healthcare, you know, and that is something that in this day and age should be, you know, an absolute unequivocal given, and it should be
Hmm.
something that we should be striving for collectively, and saying that this is something that we're not going to allow, not going to tolerate, and not going to stand for. And what can we do to
Not on
level
our
these?
watch, Johnny.
Yeah,
You're right.
exactly.
Not on our watch. What one of the things that you just said about education. So when I was in the field with this connectivity, the other thing I realized is telemedicine is a dual thing. It's not only the capturing and the sending of data and bringing
Mm.
in people to diagnostics. It also is a teaching tool. So I was in Gabon at the Albert Schweitzer Hospital, and we got up on a VSAT with a OBGYN in Boston and who spoke French. And we had a midwife and a pregnant African woman, and we brought out the ultrasound, telemedicine ultrasound, and we did a live telemedicine ultrasound between Gabon and this doctor in Boston. We're both seeing the same thing, but he's instructing the woman, the midwife, how to use the ultrasound wand, and with annotations on the screen helping her to see what she's seeing in the ultrasound. So it's not just a diagnostic tool, it's an educational tool. When we did the EKGs in Malindi, the doctor in the United States, that doctor was showing these medical doctors in Malindi this EKG strip. This is what's showing, and this is the problem, and he can we can annotate on it. So it's this you don't have to send professor, you don't have to start a school, you
No.
just get connectivity. And then and here's the biggest justice thing as far as I'm concerned. We are horrible in the Western world to educate when it comes to educating people in developing countries because we think we still need to send books. And you know what? You know what, Johnny? We never send brand new textbooks. We always tend to say, let's have a book drive, and we bring the books that are outdated or we don't use anymore and we send them out. Do you know what that says to people? You're a less than. But if we put connectivity, now we send books, Nooks, Kindles, and tablets,
Yeah.
and they can download and access anything than you and I can.
Well, this is the thing.
Stop
By,
fighting
by
over books.
providing connectivity, you have access to all of the world's information on the internet.
Exactly.
And
And think
and
of how many are doing open source learning now on
yeah.
on every subject.
Well,
So
you
so
think about any pretty much any topic that you can imagine. I'm pretty sure you'll be able to find a
yeah,
YouTube instructional video. Someone somewhere has put something together that means that you can say, "Okay, I want to learn about quantum physics,"
yeah,
and I'm going to be taught by probably some of the greatest professors who have decided in their generosity to put some content about quantum physics. It could be any number of different topics. All
yeah,
you need is
yeah.
the
Isn't it
connectivity in
great?
the device.
It's
It's
connectivity.
absolutely incredible.
Yeah. It's access. Think of a kid in the Masa Mara of Kenya or anywhere else, okay? And we've got we either have a solar powered cell tower or we're accessing one of those low orbiting satellites and we're bringing in broadband. And now these kids can get on TED Talks. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Think of it. Think of what they could do at the Khan Academy, and now major universities have so many courses online, and it's
Yeah,
like
I mean, you just mentioned
now
Khan
you can
Academy.
go.
I mean, imagine kind of like I know that I think it's Eric Weinstein is talking about this, how no one's really tackling some big problems in physics or kind of mathematics. You've got the Khan Academy. Maybe you get the next savant comes out and they are looking at some of these problems. They're analyzing this. They're doing the advanced mathematics through the Khan Academy, and they're like, suddenly they see the world in a completely different light. And maybe we have the next Neil deGrasse Tyson, we have the next Stephen Hawking, we have the next whomever in these fields that just comes out and it's just give them the opportunity, give them the connectivity, and that creates the possibility. That's really what it is. Connectivity leads to opportunity and possibility, and
Yeah.
if you provide that, then that's that's a recipe for something truly special.
Yeah. Yeah. I when I got started in this, I saw from I think it was George Clooney was supporting some sort of a a thing with refugee camps and videography stuff. I think it was George Clooney, but anyway, I saw this video that these guys shot in a refugee camp. I think it might have been Dadaab, but I think it was actually one in South Sudan. But they videotaped a kid reading his own poetry. Oh my gosh, Johnny, it was the most beautiful poetry I had ever heard. And all I could think about was if we had a cell tower there and this kid got on and had the world as his stage, somebody would be offering him a scholarship.
Yeah,
But there was no connectivity and there was nothing in that refugee camp. It
yeah.
was just a video crew that came and went. And I'm like going, who else is out there that we don't know about?
Oh my
Who
gosh!
gave the
Oh my
names?
gosh! I mean, you could drive yourself mad with that question. I think it's
Yeah,
truly staggering the breadth and
yeah,
depth of human possibility and talent that we are not enabling to level up, and it's something
yeah.
that we need to address. And I think it's incredibly inspiring that there are people like yourself, Scott, who are serving in that mission, who are working with people like Alice, who are doing all of these incredible things, with Will as well. It's just we need to take this action now. As you say, it's not on our watch. It's something that is within our gift to change and within our gift to do, and we have to take the steps to do it. Um, if people want to find out more about obviously what it is that you're involved in, what it is that you're doing, how they can get involved, how they can take that step, where can they find you? Where should they go? Where would you recommend that they start that journey?
Well, well, in a kind of like selfish kind of way, you can contact me at scott.johnson7579 at gmail.com. My 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 website, unfortunately, I still need to do some work, but it's just www.sufficient.com, sufishent.com. But Johnny, I guess where they need to go to is to people like you, and I just think that you're a catalyst. I think your company is catalytic. I think that you could pull together people that can move mountains, dig fishing holes, and make some wonderful changes in and stop all this rhetoric and this wringing of hands that says, "Oh, we can't afford this. We can't afford not to do it." That's
I couldn't agree
like
with
you
you
said.
more. I couldn't agree
I'm
with you
running
more.
out of sand in my hourglass. I don't, I will say whatever I feel needs to be said because I know I'm kind of on the lower end of that sand that's left, and it's like it's time. We have the technology and the ability. We just have to have the will.
Yeah.
And you're the kind of people, Johnny. Bless you, man. You're the person that can get so much done in your company and the passion in your heart, and with the podcast reaching so many people. Um,
Oh man, I really
you
appreciate
can
that, and
make things happen.
yeah, I really appreciate that, Scott, and I appreciate you. Thank you so much for that. I mean, we're trying, absolutely, we're trying, and I'm going to continue to keep trying and doing as much as I can to be that catalyst because I do believe the same as you that there needs to be a change. There's no reason that the time is not now, and there is no reason for the making of excuses. There's no reason for the wringing of hands. Matthew McConaughey has this lovely phrase, which is less impressed and more involved. And
Yeah.
that's really where I think that's where I got to. There's a lot of amazing stuff. There's a lot of amazing talk, but it doesn't really seem like an awful lot happens after that. So it's time to be less impressed and it's time to be more involved.
Yeah. Well said. Um, be a doer.
Absolutely.
Someone's got to be that ambassador, and you're doing it. And I'm just really, really so privileged. And I can't wait to see what you and I can do together, and
100%.
introductions I can make to you and your company, because um, I'm, I'm running out of sand.
You still got a little juice in the tank, my friend. You still got a little juice in the tank.
Thanks. Thanks.
Scott, it's been an
Well,
absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for today. Thank you so much for sparing the time to talk to us, for sharing your insights and the work that you're doing. And obviously, I really do encourage people to get in touch with you and to help to be a part of that change, because it's incredibly meaningful work that you're doing. And I know that it will impact the lives of millions, if not billions, of people that are that are due some leveling up.
let's roll up our sleeves and get it done, Johnny.
Time to get to
Hey,
work.
thank you to Howard and Richard for doing our video stuff today. Thanks. That's we need those guys, don't we?
Oh, we definitely do. We definitely do.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you found this conversation as inspiring as I did. If you'd like to find Scott, we'll put the details that he mentioned in the show notes. Obviously, please do get in touch and get involved in this mission. It really is going to be a game changer. Thank you again. Like and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening to this, and we'll see you again soon.